we all talk about you know, self custodying your assets and Bitcoin. And one of the biggest things that I made sure that my wife has access to is she's aware, how to access my Bitcoin if anything ever happens to me. And one of the main ways, actually the only way for your family to access your Bitcoin in your wallet is making sure that they have access to your seed phrase. Otherwise, all this talk about the government getting access to, no one will get access to your Bitcoin if you don't have a plan in place to make sure that property goes from you to someone else. And possession is 9/10 of the law, and it absolutely is true. Possession is 9/10 of the law. But how are your loved ones, or even the government, supposed to get possession of your Bitcoin if they don't have the seed phrase? So I just wanted to make sure everybody's familiar with that concept, that this is a new technology we're talking about with wallets and self-sovereignty and self-banking. And say what you want about the fiat or the legacy system, but there were plans in place to make sure that property goes from one individual to another. I have issues myself with that system, but that's one thing that I just want to make sure everyone is aware of, is that even if you have a will, just saying that you have a wallet and Bitcoin in that wallet, and it goes from you to, let's say, your wife, if you die, you need to make sure that those individuals know how to access it. Otherwise, it'll just go poof. No one will have access to it. So that's the one thing I wanted to say. Everything Jared was saying regarding, avoiding probate by having a will, that's fantastic advice. It's not just Bitcoin specific advice. That's advice generally. But there are specific problems with, having your assets in the crypto world. And, I'll say Bitcoin in particular, because that's where most of my assets are, and I want my loved ones to have access to it. And the only way they'll be able to do that outside of a multi-sig system is the seed phrase. And so I just want people to be aware, if you are self-custodying, you need to be very careful, because if something happens to you, you need to make sure your loved ones have access. So I'll say that, and that's the main point I just wanted to bring up real quick.
Hello.
Good morning.
Morning, Shane.
How's it going, everybody?
It's going good, dude. How's life with you? Are you excited today for Fully Noted?
Yeah, I'm really interested to hear what they got going on. I know they've got some, stuff that you can do with the NFC cards, and I'm curious to get their perspective on the security of, how secure those things are. So yeah.
I was watching a video today about them. Are they affiliated with Cold Card?
I don't think they're affiliated, but they're one of the first that I know of that's got their wallet, I think, working with the NFC cards, as well as what Cold Card or CoinKite has a card, right, just like a credit card thing. I'm trying to think of the name of it right now, and then the MK4 also has NFC capability, so I know that Fully Noted works with that as well. So I don't know the details of it, but I think they're just kind of early adopters of that stuff.
NFC is where, like, it's the chip, right? So, like, when you pay your credit card with like a machine at like a store, that's NFC technology.
Right.
I don't understand why is that important for like an MK4 or like a wallet to you? Like, why, if someone has that, is that a big deal?
Well, I don't know. Yeah, I mean, I use mine. I'm sitting at my desk with my computer and all that stuff when I'm spending any money that's or transferring any money that's managed with a hardware device. So I don't personally see that as that big a deal. But NFC in a context of where you're spending it, out and about, maybe. But yeah.
So the idea would be like you have your wallet on you, and then you'd flash it at a register.
Yeah,
and like it would.
Yeah, just like you do with your Apple Pay if you use it. Just put it next to the device, and it signs basically that transaction. I mean, Lightning is probably the more practical thing with regards to that, but as far as what kind of Bitcoin you're spending. Are you or Alex gonna announce how many episodes we've done. I thought that was a pretty cool milestone.
Yeah, I guess let's get him in here, and then we can do that. That is kind of neat, isn't it?
Yeah.
So, good morning, Terrence. What's up, man?
Hey,
And Heritage.
yes, and Bitcoin benefit plan. I like the post.
Let's go, man.
Terrence, haven't got to talk with you lately, man.
Yeah, what's new?
Not much, and then everything.
Good morning, Heritage. What's up, man?
Yeah, good afternoon, Swan Bitcoin and Shan. Heritage Falodun. I'm speaking from Nigeria. So I've been listening to your conversation that I think it's been a great one. But when it comes to spending and being self-custodying your assets, the fact that you have your warm wallet and cold wallet and the ability for you to spend even remotely or in store. I think I resonate with the idea of what Shane mentioned when he was saying Lightning Network would have been Lightning Network is actually the best implementation of that. You can think about NFT cards and all, but then the mode of settlement, the mode of transaction, which should have been instant and should have been fearless. If we're thinking of all those contexts, we need to bring in all those fixtures to check the comparison and see the one we can opt for. But then I'm always going for Lightning as the layer 2 solution on Bitcoin, as well as the mode of transaction done on it and how seamless it has been. So it's a great conversation, and I'm excited to be part of it.
Yeah, man, 100%. I agree. Lightning's definitely the way. It was just interesting because so many wallets these days are talking about the NFC capability, and I'm just still was just wondering, why is that a big deal? Because I don't plan on taking my wallet anywhere and flashing it or doing anything. I don't know. So
you can do NFC with Lightning as well, right? It just becomes a mode of. I think the NFC with Lightning is going to be, and I don't know the name of the people that came out with it, but think of basically literally a credit card that allows you to transact with Lightning just like you do a regular credit card, not on chain, but layer 2 Lightning. So
Okay, Shan, I think if that's the case, then we're just going to say the need for more scalability has been noticed, and it's something that should keep happening in the ecosystem now, because when we're talking as on Lightning as a fixture and also other cryptocurrencies or alternative coins or the non-fungible token ecosystem are willing to incorporate scalability into their system as well, leveraging and using Bitcoin as point of contact, because Bitcoin has been able to achieve that. So others might be coming in with smart contracts, but what I believe is, and the technicalities around Bitcoin, I know there is going to be more BIPs and a lot of development in the ecosystem that is going to enhance us to have layer 2 solutions such as Lightning on stable coins, on non-fungible tokens integration, and as well probably to the extent that we have Lightning features on USSD codes. I mean, on your phone you can easily dial star something and get your transaction made. But I believe it's a gradual process, and we, with the kind of work on Bitcoin Core, on each other alternative coins ecosystem, I tend to call them cheat coins, because every coin outside Bitcoin, I consider them cheat coins. But then whatever innovation they are willing to integrate, they must have been looking forward to things that have been existing in the Bitcoin ecosystem. So you are right. It's just something that we keep unfolding gradually as we get more developers working on it, I think.
100%, man. And really appreciate you coming up here and saying that and contributing. Want to say what's up and good morning to Alex, Ant. What's going on? Everybody else, welcome.
Hey, good morning, guys. Good morning, everybody. Just making coffee here.
Can you get a sound check, Jacob?
Yeah, man. Keep your mic open, and I think we're good. Yeah, because I was getting feedback. I thought it was from your mic, but no, we're Lima Charlie as always, man. Sounding good.
Keep it open?
No, I think when you have your mic open right now, your speakers are too loud, and my voice is coming through your computer into your mic, and I can hear it.
Yeah,
So
there's a
just
little bit of an echo.
Turn that down a little. Other than that, man, you sound like a professional.
Wow, that's really weird.
Yeah.
Okay, cool.
See, I got a little bit there too, man. It's your headphones volume is too loud.
How about now?
All right, let's see. Yeah,
Better,
we're good now,
better?
man. We're good. We're making money now. Yeah, let's go. Making music.
Jesus.
Welcome. Oh, what's up, Anders? D.
Good morning, people. Bringing some of you folks up.
Good morning, Alex. Good morning, everyone. Time for coffee.
Morning. Dylan LeClaire in the audience. Good morning. Shooting you an invite. We'd love to hear from you. It's been a little bit. I understand you guys are launching a new sort of market intelligence paper newsletter thing. You're welcome to come up here and talk about that.
Yes, I think Alex was trying to hear from someone, but then when the person is done, I noticed Swan Bitcoin changed the headings to inflation, Bitcoin signal, fully loadedness. So I might want to talk about inflation, judging from the fact I'm speaking from Nigeria, I'm from a different jurisdiction, and I'm not from the US. So I would like to share stats around inflation, around what Bitcoin is doing, and how people tend to keep changing with the adoption and happenings in the ecosystem. Alex, are you there?
He may be having he may be having some issues. I'm sure we'll get into talking about inflation a little bit. Apparently, and this is here in the U.S., but apparently Janet Yellen is quoted now saying, "I was wrong about inflation."
Wow, it's too bad they didn't have like a roving band of psychopaths who've been talking about this for years already, you know?
Yeah, it's like some people are wanting to give her a pass now. Well, what about, to your point, Ant, what about propping up those that have been talking about it accurately for months? I'm sure you can guess who might have been the one to we should applaud her now that she's admitted she was wrong.
Such courage, such brave courage to be able to look inside yourself and admit when you're wrong about something.
It's like tell us something. It's like tell us something we didn't already know.
I don't think anybody's surprised by that. Well, I want to welcome everybody. Good morning. Welcome to Cafe Bitcoin. We talk about Bitcoin. We're going to do that again today, just like normal. Interesting report came out by Block. And the number one reason selected for... Okay, so what they did was they did this study. It was a survey. 9,500 nationally representative adults aged 18 plus in the Americas, EMEA, and in APAC, which I guess is the Pacific. So Americas, Europe, and Asia Pacific. The number one reason that people select for not buying Bitcoin is that they don't know enough about it. I mean, we kind of all have known this, right? Anecdotally, but there's some of the data. backing it up, the number one thing is education. Education, education, education.
Yeah, Marty Bent basically, he sends out a newsletter and what as well, and I think that's pretty much what he was saying. He's like, we need more education.
32% selected cybersecurity and theft risks, and 30% selected too much price volatility. So again, the cybersecurity theft risks, again, the solution is education, more education on how to take custody of your own keys, how wallets work, how not to get scammed, how not to enter your seed phrase into some fucking fake support website. Good God. Feel bad for that guy. The price volatility issue is simple too. I mean, y'all know the answer to the price volatility issue?
Dollar cost average by every day.
One Bitcoin equals one Bitcoin, so it doesn't matter.
Shane had
That
it right,
and
actually.
that and think in terms of how much Bitcoin you have, not what it's worth in USD. Like, people need to just lower their time preference and realize what Bitcoin is.
Terrence, it's worth 3 cents to the dollar in UST, but in USD, it's $1.
Terrence, I love what you said. I totally agree with that. I mean, if you believe we're going to experience hyper Bitcoinization at some point, read the Speculative Attack little article by Pierre Rochard. One of these days, the only way you're going to actually be able to make a living is by earning Bitcoin. We're going to get there eventually. So, we're going to, at some point, our unit of account is likely to be Bitcoin. So that's my frame of reference.
Yeah, but here's the thing is that there's a transition period there, right? With all of us, like, you have to train your brain to think in to measure things in satoshis.
Thank you,
that's an
Alex.
exercise.
Satoshis is key.
Right. So that's part of it. The other part is the time preference thing. Like, these are new people. These are not, there's that saying, Bitcoin changes you, which basically, for those of you if you're new, what it means is, as you hang around and you learn about Bitcoin, you start to understand what it is. It literally changes the way you think. Your time preference shifts. You become more disciplined. You lose weight. You quit smoking. You stop drinking. No, I'm just kidding. It doesn't do any of those things. But you definitely become more disciplined. You realize the value of saving, and things of that nature. Some people might hear that and be like, "How does that work?" And just trust me. You have to take the time to understand it. But when we're talking about brand new people and their reasons for not buying Bitcoin, if they say it's too much price volatility, I think the best answer is just DCA. Explain DCA to them.
Yeah, and another great thing, Alex, is just zooming out, looking at the price on at least 4 or 5 years back, and then sure, it's volatile in the short term. That's the price we pay for above 100% yearly average gain, right? We just got to zoom out, and then it's actually never been down on a 4 or 5 year period. I mean, to say the least.
Another great way to think about volatility is to talk about Amazon and the volatility it went through in the first 10 years or 15 years of its existence. I mean, it happens to any emerging technology and any emerging company that is going to dominate a space.
This is a novel asset, globally accessible, with no 5 o'clock close times or weekend holiday bank hours. It's 365, 24/7 price discovery all around the world. And it's new. It's like we haven't seen this type of asset before. And people are trying to figure out what it's worth. And there's a bunch of people who are supporting it, and there's a bunch of detractors. Like, it's just, we have to figure out what it's worth. It's under constant price discovery.
Yeah, for sure. By the way, I just really want to take a second and pump Ant's site, Time Chain Stats. Time Chain Stats. Excuse me, can't even speak. .com. Go check that out, guys. It's a really incredible resource. We should put a link up in the nest.
That's sweet, Alex. I really appreciate that. Yeah, as far as Bitcoin adoption and stuff, for noobs, we were having a really cool conversation last night about you have to get kind of into the future a little bit, but we're talking about the inflection point where right now we're talking about buy Bitcoin, you got to get Bitcoin because of these reasons, But in the future, there's like a social inflection point where like people will almost like shame you into Bitcoin in some ways. So like, for example, the one that we talked about last night was the future of dating and like the future of getting married. And we were saying that, like right now there's like a host of different things that like might, allow you to like, select your mate. But in the future, the hash power that they command might be a part of that. Like that might be one of the things. Like you got all these people in the club and you're trying to figure out which one you're going to date. You're like, all these guys are swell guys. All these ladies are super nice. But let's cut to the chase. What kind of hash power are we talking about here? And then, it's like a measure, like a mark of your virility, of your overall health, of like of your wisdom, And at some point, if you go far enough on that timeline, at some point, the people who have like lesser hash power, like are at a disadvantage. So then you start talking about like families, like dads and moms, like helping prop up their kids' hash power from birth, like because they want to make sure that by the time they get to 18, like their kid has a realistic shot of finding a husband or a wife, Crazy. And then somebody made up the joke about the inevitable rise of hash fund babies, but I'll leave it right there. It was a pretty funny conversation.
Hash fund babies.
Hey, what's up, everyone? On the topic of babies and like all this future stuff, I just seen it's an article by The Guardian called Tamagotchi Kids. Could the future of parenting be having virtual children in the metaverse, and supposedly in 10, 15 years, they will be undistinguishable from the real thing somehow? Yeah, I just seen that.
Well, yeah, you'll be in your
Metaverse is not a Metaverse is not a real place. I'm just going to get that out there. For those of you who don't know and are confused about that, it's not a real place.
Yeah, it was kind of a sickening agenda, and I kind of like how Bitcoin's the opposite of that. It's like totally helped me build the long term horizon, and like prioritize everything. And like now I'm trying to find like the right woman to have a family with. That's kind of like what Bitcoin's done to me in the last, I suppose, year. And everybody else that comes through spaces
Yeah.
like this. Thank you.
Get you thinking long term, no? I like what Ant was saying about what's your hash power, man.
Yeah, check our hash power, bro.
Questions you get asked, awkward questions on date you get asked in the future. Like, are you a pure blood or are you pure blood? What's your hash power?
Yeah,
I mean, humans have stacked up their dating processes all through different things all throughout time.
Sorry, Peter, we were running over you. What were you saying?
It's like Gattaca when they do the DNA testing.
Wild. What a world.
Yeah.
Some exciting news. As of yesterday, Cafe Bitcoin has done 100 recorded episodes.
Congrats, guys.
Wow,
That's
that's
a
awesome.
big milestone. It's a big milestone. Next up, 1,000, right?
Yep. The big 1K.
Got to 10x this baby.
As long as we keep getting Hobart, D, Peter, Anders, you guys showing up and helping us out, I think we could do it. As a team, we can make it happen.
There's actually only 100 recordings that we can hear, because I believe that Twitter has recorded every single thing we've said.
Yeah,
Not
that's
just
true.
Twitter.
Yeah, not just Twitter, right? NSA has got a copy of all this shit.
FBI, NSA, DIA, they all do.
That's for your protection.
Yep. I just assume everything I say in a digital format is recorded and the NSA has a copy of it. So some people might be like, damn, well, if you think that, why do you say the shit you say? I'm an older guy. I don't give a fuck anymore. I don't care. I'm that dude where it's like, get the fuck off my lawn, kids.
Do you have the M1 Grand to go with it?
Okay, back to the block report. 29% of people reasons selected for not buying Bitcoin: uncertain regulatory outlook.
It's a commodity. What is uncertain as far as the regulatory outlook?
I reckon that's actually a pretty big one. People need to understand it, especially in the institutional space. You know, you hear Visa, C-suite guys from Visa, MasterCard, and somebody else was talking about it recently.
It's because they conflate crypto with Bitcoin. That's the problem.
Well, yeah, there's that. But then I guess wheeling back on my own comment, I understand the regulatory landscape as far as like retirement plan allocation and stuff like that. That I can definitely understand.
And maybe the fiat on-ramp, off-ramp issue.
I mean, the average person, Mike, I'm sure you would agree. I would think the average person still has all kinds of questions, right? Think that the government will shut it down, all the things, right? What happens when the internet goes down? All those questions.
And that's really more of a matter of game theory and protocol, not necessarily regulation, right?
Well, it's an education issue. And,
yes,
in my opinion, like, it would be best if part of the education, because first of all, Swan's very heavy on education. Second of all, Cafe Bitcoin is very heavy on education. And like, that is the mission to me, is to get the word out, to get the ideas out there. And it's like we were having this discussion the other day, is if we had really solid responses to all of these issues, instead of just blowing it off like, psh, they just don't get it. Idiot's not going to make it. If we had actual real responses to this kind of stuff, I think it would be helpful, because people come into these rooms. Journalists come in here on the regular. Almost every day we have a major journalist in this room. I don't know if you guys know that.
Yeah, but
like sometimes it's like 3, 4, 5, 6 of them. Yeah. And so they're listening to us to pick up a lot of their cues. And so, I don't know, I take that seriously.
The other thing, Alex, is self-custody is, I know it's not regulatory. Well, kind of, sort of is, but not really. But for anybody out there that hasn't self-custodied yet, you don't understand a Bitcoin until you self-custody, and then you of the entire system it is. And so it's kind of not, it's regulated by its own protocol. It's not really, ultimately, it's not regulated by an entity.
By humans, right? The things that are regulated are the old legacy finance systems that kind of surround Bitcoin. I shouldn't say surround. That's probably a bad word. That interface with Bitcoin at the edges of the system, right? Where we convert fiat into Bitcoin. So there's still a need for that. But at the end of the day, it's just like Peter said. I mean, Bitcoin really, it can't be regulated because you can't control it. Like, nobody can control it. So, and it takes a little bit of work to get to that point, to understand that. But that's the biggest, probably that one is the biggest barrier in if I had to take a guess, aside from just general knowledge and education from some of the older folks and a lot of the C-suites and corporations and stuff. Uncertain regulatory outlook is probably one of the big hurdles. And, I think it's important that we don't just poo poo that, because institutional adoption of Bitcoin is coming. And it's probably pretty important. These institutions control a crap ton of capital, guys. A lot of capital. I can remember being in a room. This was, I don't know, 5-ish years ago. Went to one of these conferences where it's pretty much all institutional investors. It's all pension funds and things of that nature. And there were something like 300 participants in this conference, but it was almost $2 trillion under management represented in that one room.
Ooh. Earlier, Alex, you were talking about, how people can lose Bitcoin and all this other, FUD basically surrounding, that kind of aspect. And, it makes me think, how many stories do you have of people losing gold? You've got the one where people hide gold everywhere, and then it's lost until somebody else finds it. So, people hide cash. People hide all kinds of value, and it gets lost all the time. So I don't think that Bitcoin gets lost at any higher rate than any other thing that we value in the world. People lose rings, they lose diamonds, they lose all kinds of stuff every day.
People lose their car keys every day, and their phones every day. Yeah, it's a real thing. We keep having this. We're having these internal discussions at Swan right now about this topic, because there's a lot of people who don't want to do self-custody. We recommend it. We really do. At Swan. So, like, if we could wave a magic wand and have everybody do self-custody, we would do that. But the truth is, a lot of people don't trust themselves to hold their own Bitcoin.
They don't trust themselves until they do. And, my greatest fear is not my security hygiene, which, isn't shinobi like, nor is it the fact that I might lose some Bitcoin because of my self-custody. My greatest fear is that if I die, who is going to be able to access my Bitcoin?
I just want to say, Peter, that's a really, really important point. And Alex, I totally agree. And I say self-custody is absolutely the best thing. But and all of us here in Bitcoin are saying that, but not many people are talking about, okay, so what if you get killed in a car accident? What if you and your spouse gets killed? Like, are there people left and education left from you behind to make sure that it passes on, to whoever you want to pass it on to? I think that's pretty important, that each of us have an idea about that setup.
Yeah, and
what's fascinating about that is it used to be, you rewind the clock a couple 100+ years, it used to be just kings and queens and royalty who cared about generational wealth, the trusts that were formed interfamily. That's why you would have like kings and queens of other nations have their kids marry each other. So you would have trustees over wealth that spanned multiple generations, which turned into trust law. And it's fascinating to me that we're even having these conversations, because it's just normal people thinking about this stuff now. And in a fiat monetary system, normal people typically think a lot less about this, because everybody's just running so hard chasing the frickin' prices that are running away from them, that generational wealth doesn't really even enter into the equation for most people. But Bitcoiners, again, Bitcoin changes you. People start thinking in terms of, wow, this could be wealth for generations in my family if we steward it properly, right? It's really fascinating. And I'm convinced that proper inheritance planning is going to become a huge industry in Bitcoin. People are always like, hey, I want to work in Bitcoin. Guys, we have to build the Bitcoin ecosystem. Build it. Like, take your skills and move it into the Bitcoin ecosystem. If you understand inheritance planning, this is, guys, I'm not kidding. I talk to clients about this stuff all the time. Huge, huge industry moving forward. Lightning node operators is going to be a thing. I'm 100% serious right now. Okay, Chris.
Yeah, no, I think this is a really good point. It was a topic of discussion at our latest meetup. Not this week, but last week. One of the guys in our meetup, he is a lawyer, and he does specifically trust planning and estate planning. And he made a really valid point. He's like, I do trust, more traditional fiat trusts and stuff like that. But he's like, being a Bitcoiner, like many Bitcoiners don't realize this. Like, if you were to die and you're, let's just say you're married, you have kids, whatever, and you're thinking that your Bitcoin can go to your spouse. Well, technically, by law, if you do not have a trust, it can go into probate, and the state technically has a claim on your Bitcoin until it gets sorted out in court. And, obviously, it's your Bitcoin. If you self-custody, you can do whatever you want. But the last thing you want is that when it goes to probate, technically, they have a claim to know how much Bitcoin you and your family has. And he was making a very valid point. If you want to protect yourself from a legal standpoint, you want to enact a trust, put it, most likely in your spouse's name, and then your kids as like beneficiaries or secondary beneficiaries. So that way the state or anyone doesn't have a claim to know how much Bitcoin you have or a claim to your Bitcoin at all in general. And he made some really valid points. He's like, because once it goes to probate and once the state gets involved, technically you make yourself no longer yourself because you've passed away, but your family a target because they know it's public record for them to know how much Bitcoin you have in perpetuity forever, unless obviously they spend it or lose it. There's certain circumstances to that, but I'll say I'm on the Eastern Seaboard or the East Coast, and he's like one of the few lawyers talking about this. I know we're still very early, and he's a Bitcoiner, but he had someone reach out to him from Georgia, the state of Georgia, and they were looking for a lawyer in Atlanta, and he does not live in that state, and they were looking for a Bitcoin lawyer to do this, and he's like multiple states away, and they were basically saying, he's like, oh yeah, like we reached out to people, and you're the only guy on the Eastern Seaboard that apparently knows this. So to Alex's point, I mean, we are still very early, but there's a lot of stuff that needs to be built out in order to protect Bitcoiners and protect their families.
Yeah, and importantly, here's the thing. The whole trust issue, like having trust and all that kind of stuff, like this is pretty fucking old stuff. Like lawyers have known how to do this forever. Where the vacuum is in knowledge is an attorney who actually understands how to create not just these kind of structures. I think the structures are the less important issue. I mean, sure, you need them. I think the more important issue is what's the knowledge protocol transfer? How the fuck do you teach somebody to take those seed phrases, spin up a wallet if necessary, and get access to those keys? That's the part that needs addressing.
Yeah, and he brought that up as well, because he's like, if you think of a traditional lawyer, if you were to go to them and they're not a Bitcoiner, they don't know what they're doing, and you're like telling them, hey, this is like my hardware wallet or whatever your setup, he's like, a traditional lawyer would be like, oh, let me put this in a Google Doc and like save this on my computer for when you pass away. And he's like, that's completely the wrong way to think about it. Obviously, he's a Bitcoiner.
Yeah, exactly.
He's like, oh, they're like, I need to write this in a will. It's like, no, when you start writing it on a will, you save it on a computer. Like those things are like big no-nos. Like, do not do that. So
big no. Yeah, it's all about bearer assets. Interestingly enough, we get back to the bearer asset thing, which, I mean, as advanced as Bitcoin is, you'd think we'd do away with all that, but no, you kind of still need that physical component, which is really interesting. It's a self-sovereignty thing. Terrence, go ahead.
Sure. So basically, I have some notes from talking to someone over the weekend on this stuff. And what you want is an irrevocable trust to avoid tax. Specifically, maybe look into it. This is not advice, but I would look into a dynasty trust. It's a special type of irrevocable trust where you can avoid state and federal taxes for 365 years in Nevada. South Dakota has a perpetual trust, meaning it lasts forever, but that will probably be legally challenged, so it's unclear if that's going to work, because trusts typically have a termination date.
Terrence, can you speak to some of the downsides of an irrevocable trust versus a revocable trust?
Yeah, so I'll be honest, I'm very new to this, so that's why this is definitely not advice, right? I know about trust. It's not my area of expertise. I'm looking into it because it's interesting to me, and also there's a huge client need, as Alex was alluding to. But with a irrevocable trust, once the assets go in, you can't take it out. That's my understanding. Revocable, it can be like, well, under certain conditions, you can still take it out. So it's the tax consequences are not going to be as like a normal trust would just be revocable. But if you want to do inheritance planning, usually you do an irrevocable trust.
How
And the
can an
family,
irrevocable trust work with Bitcoin though? Because I mean, who's going to stop the person with the keys from moving the bit? I don't quite get how that's going to work.
Right. So here's the thing. Okay, it's the difference between how the law is going to treat it versus the actual practical protocol, right? And it's kind of like the difference between passing a law or trying to enforce the law. Like we've talked about this on occasion. So in the case of what Chris was talking about a little while ago, let's say there's no trust, right? And then the state finds out somehow, I don't know, they find out that you have Bitcoin, they're going to say, okay, well, this is going to go into probate. Now, whether they can actually enforce that or not is questionable, right? But at that point, you're still at odds with the state, and you could find yourself in court and just blah, 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 blah. So there's two aspects. One is, navigating the actual laws of man, is what I call it, versus the basically, the part of Bitcoin that you can't fucking touch it. I mean, theoretically, look, if someone wanted to say, yeah, screw you, I'm not going to cooperate with the state, what would happen to that? Well, you better have another generation who knows how to access those keys, because they might throw you in jail for the rest of your life, right? Are you willing to do that and pass it on to your, to the next generation? Some people are.
That wasn't my point, Alex. My point was that even a law-abiding citizen, and I think most people want to, abide by the laws of society for whatever reason, fear or just as a general, as a good citizen. But my point is that how does the authoritative body ensure that those things, because that's what they do, like, so with property, for example, they'll put a lien on the property because the bank holds the title. But Bitcoin, because it's completely outside and it's self-sovereign, just completely changes the paradigm of how these things are going to be addressed and how they're going to be enforced.
Yeah, you and I are talking about the same. You and I are talking about the same thing. I think we're talking past each other. We're actually talking about the same thing. The issue is compliance, right? Under normal circumstances, compliance can be enforced because they can just reach into your bank account and freeze assets, or reach into that. They can freeze assets. You can't do that with Bitcoin. Bitcoin's untouchable by the state, basically. So it requires your cooperation. Really, the only thing they have is the threat of jail, I guess. Or if we get into that dystopian enough of a society, maybe they'll do things to you. I don't know. I don't see how they can actually enforce it. There's no compliance tools versus Bitcoin. Once it's on chain and once you have your keys and you're in self custody, there's no compliance tools. Unlike, some of this, everything about what's being developed nowadays is all about compliance. You hear these knuckleheads at the WEF talking about, oh, we're going to track your freaking carbon footprint. We're going to know where you drive. We're going to know how much you fart every day. Oh, by the way, that pill that we were requiring you to take, we're going to know whether you took it or not. There's all compliance tools, right? That doesn't exist when it comes to Bitcoin. They can't take it from you.
I can't imagine, like, if you get in one of those situations where the government has a claim on your Bitcoin, at least temporarily, and like if you do win it back, I can imagine a world where they're giving you paper Bitcoin or some like like Frankenstein version of what you had, or they give you a comparable amount of CBDC.
Yeah, perhaps. I want to shout out to Brandon Quittem, who's in the audience. I'm throwing you an invite to come up here if you want to come up. We rarely see you in here, so we'd love to have you
I'm
up.
so sorry.
And his article I posted in the Nest on wallets. It's one of our most popular free articles at Swan Bitcoin. And I also have a link to Gigi's privacy article, since the discussion relates to that. Real quick, just on the privacy point, if you have good OPSEC, so there's one school of thought where eventually the government will figure out how much Bitcoin everybody has with on-chain analysis and all the other metadata and all the other stuff they're doing, recording us and all that stuff. So in that case, you want to be compliant, like Alex said.
I have no
You own
Bitcoin. I lost it all.
Exactly. And so I think what's going to happen, because it is a bearer asset, I think some people who are maybe more pragmatic, they're going to have some Bitcoin that is totally outside the system, and some that is, even though they control the private keys, they're just like, okay, we'll just report it. And it's in an irrevocable trust, so they can't tax my estate or my heirs anyways. So it might be something like that. It's kind of like how, a lot of the waiters and waitresses that get cash tips, or people who work with cash income or cash tips, they report much of their income, not necessarily 100.00% of it, and they're fine. But if you get too greedy, you might get in trouble, because it looks suspicious to the IRS, and you'll get audited. And even if they don't find anything, you still lose, because you waste time, you spend money on expensive lawyers, you can't get that time or money back.
Sorry, just real quick. You guys are talking about such an important thing about the what happens if something happens to you, and how do you pass this down to your family or loved ones or whoever your heirs are. And the trick is not just about how to structure things and how to navigate the laws, but how do you pass down the key knowledge of how to actually interface with this thing? Because what Peter pointed out is true. Like, the state can't touch your Bitcoin on chain if you hold the private keys, but that's only if your heirs or the people who are going to inherit this know what the hell to do with a private key. And that's kind of the biggest problem of potential legal friction with the state putting things in probate or anything like that. That's just a whole swamp of unknowns that your heirs have to deal with. And in many cases, that's why the state wins out, because they exert pressure on people. And just like your heirs may not know how to handle the Bitcoin, they don't know how to handle the state putting that kind of action on them. So that's really the challenge.
Okay, we're going to go with Shane and then BJ Dictor. Shane, you there? Might have stepped away. BJ, good morning. How you doing?
Otherwise,
connection issues.
Okay. I can just jump in. I had a point from earlier. We had a lawyer on the show like a month ago or something, and he said there's one very important thing we all have to think about in this inheritance planning of Bitcoin, and that is whoever has the legal right to your Bitcoin and whoever has it in possession, it's not the same thing. And because it's a bearer asset, you can't trust anyone really, or shouldn't trust anyone that, oh, you're supposed to give it to so and so. It's like a lawyer would never take anything like a deed to your home or something, because you can't end up taking possession and actually live in the house or whatever. And I'm not saying a lawyer would do anything like that, but if Bitcoin goes where we believe it goes, and there's millions of dollars, and it's just a matter of taking it, and then it's yours, it's in your possession. It's just not the same thing. So this setup, careful trusting one person like a lawyer, like this is how you do, hand this over. I think what I'm thinking myself is separating out the seed and in several copies of each, but no one point of failure. It's something we all have to think about. But that's just the point I wanted to say, that you can't just expect that whoever has it in possession also will give it to those that are supposed to get it. Like the most ideal thing is to make sure that the people who are supposed to get it know how to handle it, and it can be given directly to them one way or another in your setup.
Yeah, I agree with that. That's probably one of the most important things is that transfer of knowledge protocol, right? You have to have that as part of it. It's not just the legal structures, which are probably pretty damn important, but everything. BJ, welcome back.
Hey, dude. Good morning, everybody. Sorry about that. I'm having connection problems. I just want to tack on to your discussion about compliance and surveillance and the excessive surveillance now. For example, we're just finding out that all of us, well, most of us participants, some of us, we don't even know because everything in government is opaque, that we were wiretapped during our protest in Canada, which I'm starting to think, well, when Caribou was working with a team of people trying to get Bitcoin to the truckers and all that sort of stuff, was he wiretapped? And is that why his house got raided? Because he apparently was raided by 10, 12 police officers who were armed with a laptop, ready to scare him into submitting his seed phrase so they could confiscate his property. This is getting a little crazy. And I think really the only remedy and solution is going to be we need to sue the hell out of them. Individuals in the government, individual politicians, and we need to start unmasking the faceless bureaucrats. And I think maybe this, we're going to see how this develops, because a bunch of people in the Bitcoin space who are supportive of us, we're all working on something together. But that might need to be the direction we need to go, because they always use lawfare against us. It's time for us to start, coming together and utilizing the legal system and the tools to start dragging them through court. And individual people within the government, like I put up, on the Substack I released this week that thankfully Jordan Peterson just retweeted. We need to know, in the case of Canada, and you guys have this all the time, you have this problem, who is the faceless bureaucrat who made the decision to press the execute button in Canada to say, freeze bank accounts now? Who's that person? What's their name? Where do they live? We need to start unmasking these people, because the faceless bureaucracy cannot continue. And that's going to be our only remedy, is we're going to have to fight back. And for all the anybody in the government listening, calm down. I don't mean literally throwing punches or guns, but utilizing the legal system. That's going to be our only remedy. And we all need to start thinking about that seriously, because if not, it's just going to get worse. And the only weapon, you know why they want to confiscate guns all the time? Because there's one weapon that they understand on the other side that they're obsessed with, and that is money. They're obsessed with money. You should have seen some of the extremist, far left, Trudeau type politicians who were obsessing over the amount of money that the convoy was raising in such a short period of time, because it out-fundraised any political party in Canadian history. So we need to start thinking about that and coming together and starting to go after them, because it's the only thing they'll get. Just my personal opinion. What do you guys think?
Wow. First of all, thanks for sharing that. Second of all, like you're a very courageous guy, and holding up under all this, I think is pretty amazing. I think you're right. I think that for some of these people who are all about power and have no problem taking away people's rights, I think you're right. I think they have to be exposed. And if they're the kind of people who fall into the psychopathic spectrum that I talk about, that's their worst fear, is being exposed. They hate that stuff. So you're right. That's the way, man. The problem with that is it's scary if they're turning the apparatus of the state against you, right? What does that mean? Police raids, FBI raids in the U.S. I'm talking about CIA raids, on and on and on. And then the question becomes, well, are the is the justice system actually going to do its job? Right? I mean, that's the big question in the United States, has been for a while. Like, just me personally, I don't understand why Hillary Clinton never went to jail. And she's still not in jail. And it's just mind-blowing to me. So, you know, the question then becomes, well, can they get away with whatever the fuck they want? Seems like it. It's questionable, you know?
And a good example is, you know, we talk Julian Assange, for example. Like, I don't really like Julian Assange's political opinions, but what they're doing to the guy is criminal. And, you know, we talk about human rights in the Western world. Well, look what you're doing to this poor guy. And just for doing his job of reporting. So I understand the fear, but at the same time, at the end of the day, I think there's more of us than them, no?
Yeah, it's not only that. It's like fear's not going to help you, because once it gets to a certain point, it's like you either fight back or just become just agree to go live in the pod. Just agree you're going to dream on in the metaverse. You're not going to own your own shit. You'll own nothing. You'll be happy. You'll eat the bugs. They will fucking have everything. District 1 will control the world, right? That's the world you get if you just lay down and are like, okay, well, I'm scared. Look, everybody gets scared. I don't know. I'm just at that point in my life where it's like, fuck it. Well, you can't let that continue. You just can't. So, you know, another example is the Ghislaine Maxwell case. You know what I mean? That whole thing was completely secret. Who's in those books? How come nobody's been charged? Nobody's been arrested? It's very questionable. You know, you get the leaders of the Western world potentially implicated in sex with children. That's some serious shit, guys. Why has nobody been arrested? Why has nobody been charged? Who's in those books? Why is it all a secret? Why is nobody asking these fucking questions? Sorry. Your fault, BJ. You got me fucking fired up on this subject.
Reduce your social credit score.
Oh, yeah. You know what? I just got an email from one of my banks, one of the big banks in Canada. If I could find the email, it was something to the effect of... where is it? Oh, yeah. Okay. Boost your social commerce strategy. What the fuck does that mean? My social commerce. I give somebody money, they give me a product or service. That's it. That's our commerce. There's no social commerce. And this is coming from one of the largest banks in Canada that is also all over the United States. And also, by the way, happens to be the primary bank of the Clinton Foundation. No, I'm not going to. That's just a funny thing. There's no conspiracy thing.
Yeah.
It's just a little tidbit, you know?
Anyway, let's move on. We got a lot of hands up here. I think people still want to talk about inheritance planning. Who's next? Peter?
Yeah, the only comment I had about what BJ Dichter said was, you know, how far we've come when 10 cops show up at your house with a computer to scare the shit out of you. So I found that very amusing to hear. I wanted to go back to Bear Assets because I was a little confused about it. And so I did a Google search on it, and they list an example of a digital Bear asset as Ripple. And then right under
That's
that,
wrong.
I'm not saying it's right. I'm just telling you what I searched. Terrence, calm down. And right underneath that, it says Bitcoin is not a digital Bear asset. So I'm confused. Maybe we could talk about digital Bear assets so that I tried to look it up on my own, but I'm not getting accurate information or, you know, whatever.
It's not going to be an agreed upon concept because it's a completely novel concept until the point that you have digital scarcity and you can't just reproduce and copy something digital. This is brand new. This is 13 years old. So the legal system doesn't have consensus about this. This is where we have an advantage because we actually understand the nuance far greater than the lawmakers, who likely will take another decade or so to even begin to crack the knowledge barrier. So it's a bearer asset because you bear it in the same way that you bear arms, in the same way that you bear a physical asset. Just imagine a brick of gold, imagine a pistol or a rifle. These things are in your hand. And the thing about physical things is they can come out of your hand really quickly. So that bar of gold, that firearm can be removed from your possession and you don't bear it anymore. This, again, is the amazing thing about Bitcoin, is that you bear it and it's incredibly difficult to remove it from your possession. So what we're looking at here is really a brand new concept because it's in the digital realm. The existing legal framework has no clue how to handle this. And that's why, in my opinion, there is so much sort of supposing and suggesting about what Bitcoin is. We want to find which box to stick it in. Is it a commodity? Is it a property? You know, nobody wants to go near the is it money thing because that just absolutely challenges everything. So it's complex and you're not going to find consensus in the legacy system for quite some time, in my opinion.
Agree with all that. I'd say Bitcoin is, in plain English, hard to stop. The transactions are hard to stop, and the asset is hard to take away. So sensor resistant and seizure resistant. Bitcoin Core developers who are awesome, they talk about these all the time. That's what they're very focused on. Ripple is centralized. They have a company. So of course they can stop or censor Ripple much more easily than Bitcoin.
All right, let's hit some announcements, and then we'll go with Shane and Anders. You're listening to Cafe Bitcoin. Good morning and welcome. If you've never been here before, we talk about Bitcoin, all things that bear on Bitcoin too, kind of the intersection of Bitcoin and geopolitics and economics and all those different things. It is a great place for your morning news, preferred hangout for some of the smartest minds of Bitcoin to chill and talk about what's going on. It's also a podcast. It's up on Spotify, Apple. Everywhere that you get your podcasts, you can throw myself a follow or Swan Bitcoin to be notified of when those drop. The Hard Money Show with Natalie Brunell is coming up soon. Look for that. That's going to be awesome. It's a new show from Swan Studios and Bitcoin Magazine. It's going to be one of the highest quality Bitcoin shows ever produced. Pretty excited about that. And then finally, Swan Bitcoin. I work with Swan and Swan Private. If you'd like to know more about that, shoot me a DM. The idea is high net worth, ultra high net worth. If you're going to take a large position in Bitcoin, we have a very deep bench of expertise, and we can help you understand what it is, why you might want to do it, entry strategies, allocation strategies, inheritance planning, custody, self-custody, multi-sig, all that kind of stuff. You can shoot me a DM or Terrence up here, who's my colleague, to get more information about that. Shane, go ahead.
Hey, I was just going to say, inheritance planning, just real quick. Yeah, I got a stupid phone call. I was just going to say, back to the inheritance planning. I know we don't have time to talk about it here, but do encourage people to go and look into multi-sig. It's not be all end all, but I do think it has some positive aspects to it. So go check that out. I mean, with Casa or Unchained, I think the two most notable ones, actually, they both have a free kind of plan if you want to start and you're a DIY or, kind of do it yourself. But yeah, look into that.
Anders, go ahead.
Thanks, Alex. Regarding so BJ was saying something earlier regarding privacy, and I completely agree. They listen into more than we are aware of. And what I want to just add to that is it's funny how the government says, "Oh, you don't really need privacy because, like, if you're not doing anything wrong, why do you need privacy?" Obviously, that's a slippery slope. But when you turn it around, the government wants privacy. You mentioned Julian Assange, BJ, and he basically took war crimes that, as far as I understand, that U.S. had perpetrated, maybe also other countries, and exposed that So the government wants its privacy, and they do wrong things, bad things all the time, and they want that. They don't want that exposed. So I mean, it really it's going both ways. If the government wants privacy, we want it as well, and even if they don't, we want it either way. Just wanted to add that.
Yeah, and
Yeah,
it's
like
actually just the opposite, Anders. The government does not; they don't have the right to privacy. We do. So it's actually not
Agree.
quite like that.
A great
And
point.
and they keep talking about these CBDCs where everybody, everybody will be on these, centralized bullshit currencies. But does that mean I get to see what's in Justin Trudeau's wallet? Does that mean I get to see how much money he's bringing in offshore into his how many CBDCs he's getting? No, and that's the problem, and it's got to stop. And the only way, I mean, one thing, Alex, you mentioned about the legal system in the courts. Yeah, I produce a podcast for our lawyers and Diana Davidson, a researcher and stuff, right? We talk about this stuff all the time, and like the culture of what's happening in the legal system. And one of the things I've learned from them, they brought up a number of times, is often you're seeing rulings coming out where the judges, and they often admit it, that they are looking for public sentiment on issues, meaning they're worried about the mob coming after them as well. They don't want to be doxxed. They have families. They don't want to see cities, erupt in riots and having cities being burnt to the ground. So they're also now considering that, okay, well, what's the mob on the other side? And they're ignoring the silent majority, because the silent majority is being silent, and we got to stop doing that. And the way to respond, I think, is not to go out on the streets and be violent and burn stuff. I think the response is to start engaging and becoming very aggressive in tactfully using the legal system to show that, no, there is a massive pushback and the majority is not silent. The difference is we're out working, we're busy, we don't have time to go burn stuff. But what we will do is we'll raise a shit ton of capital and we'll hire the strongest legal minds in the country to push back, and we will drag them through court permanently until they stop this nonsense. Just my personal opinion.
So one thing I've got to say about that, BJ, is you got to understand that. So in the state of Washington, where I live, I brought this up before, there's approximately 7 million people. There are 600 lawyers plus employed by the Attorney General's office, and their only job is to defend three-letter agencies against the citizens of Washington State. And these people do not pay a dime for this legal representation. And so they will go till the ends of the earth, and regardless of what the issue is, they will tie people up for years in court. And if you're going to go that route, you have to have some serious conviction and persistence to be able to follow that. It might be that getting Bitcoiners into the Parliament in Canada would be a better way to go and a less resistant way to go, because the lawmakers can change the law with the stroke of the pen.
I think I agree with you 100%. Two things. First, I don't think it's an either or. I don't think they're mutually exclusive. I think you can do multiple strategies at once. But the first thing is, you mentioned the 600 people. What are their names, and why aren't they on a list on the internet? So everybody knows exactly who those people are. It's time we start doing that and getting aggressive. The second thing is, in terms of Parliament in Canada, we actually have a unique opportunity, and I'm not shilling for somebody, but I'm just being practical right now. We have in Canada, there's a lead, and this is relevant to the global Bitcoin community. It's not just for Canada. There is somebody who's running for leadership of the Conservative Party. It's our equivalent of a primary, and he's one of 6. He's young. He's a Bitcoiner. He's been dragged down the rabbit hole, and it's perfect because he's an economics guy. He's always been about, the economy. And somebody explained to him, and I have some Bitcoiners who we all know in this room, by the way, met with him and explained what it was. And once they explained to him, immediately, it's deflationary, or it will be a deflationary asset. It's got a supply cap. And he immediately said, "Oh, that sounds fascinating. Tell me more." So he is now going around the country and explaining that people should be able to transact in whatever currency they want. If they want to use Bitcoin or they want to use, fiat currency from the government, they should have the right to choose. And what's funny is the other five that he's up against are trying to ridicule him and trying to make him look bad, and it's blown up in their face. He's pulling at like 60%, like he's a shoo-in.
What do you mean it's blowing up in their face? Like what is the thing that people are connecting with? So basically what you're saying is the people are connecting with something this guy is saying, and they're like, yeah, we're behind this guy. Screw you guys.
That's right. He's trying to explain to people that this is Bitcoin is, whether you understand it or not, it is a mechanism for freedom, and that's what he's trying to campaign on. And one of his counterpoints, who's somebody who I actually know and I'm friends with, I was really disappointed with her, and I told her, she said, Bitcoin, these CBDCs like Bitcoin. Like, she completely didn't understand what she was talking about. And it blew up in her face because it's all the young conservatives, and I don't mean like the hardened. Conservatism in Canada is very different than in the US, just so you guys understand. It's a little bit more to the center. But all the younger people who have been growing up for the past 10 years, watching our society devolve into degeneracy, and who've moved over to kind of the center right of the political sphere, they're pushing back and they're like, no, this guy speaks for me. So yeah, maybe the boomers don't get it, but they're dwindling in numbers, and it's really motivating the younger people. So could imagine what would happen for the Bitcoin community around the world if this guy goes through the primary process, being pro Bitcoin. He actually gets leadership, which I think is a shoo-in at this point, and manages to run against Prime Minister Blackface Diversity Trudeau and win, which again, he has a very, very good chance against him because he's really quite center-right. What we will have seen is somebody come up the ranks pro-Bitcoin and now lead a country with a commitment to Bitcoin. So I think that could definitely be a model for politicians around the world, because they all look at each other. They all use the same NGOs and lobby firms. And if they see he is successful taking this path to become a leader on pro-freedom and pro-Bitcoin, you'll see how quickly other politicians around the world, who all hold Bitcoin, by the way, they all have it. I happen to know 90% of them own Bitcoin. They will start speaking in favor of Bitcoin. And I think, you know what they say, slowly and then all at once. I think that's what will happen.
Wow. Man, that's fantastic. I love what you said. Whether you understand it or not, Bitcoin is a mechanism for freedom. That is a very powerful slogan. That is a very powerful platform, because how do you fight against that? I mean, if you fight against that, basically you're a fucking tyrant. Wow, that is really good. Really good. I can see how that...
That's how I got my boomer parents to buy Bitcoin. That's what I explained to them. I said to them, you're conservative investors. You always want to hedge just in case. You've always taught me my entire life, just have your just in case fund. Well, this is your just in case fund. You don't understand it. You don't need to understand it. But when you need it, it'll be there for you. And that seemed to...
This is the just in case fund for the human race, guys. This is the ARK. Wow. I'm blown away. I'm really blown away. That is really cool. And I can see how that could get a lot of traction, and the optics of fighting against that platform would be very, very bad. There's no way out. I mean, if you're a tyrant, there's no way out. I mean, it's going to pin you against the wall. So what happens then? I mean, do they throw some kind of little hissy fit temper tantrum on the way out? I don't know, but I mean, interesting. Okay, let's go back, rewind a little bit. A little while ago, we were talking about inheritance planning in Bitcoin and the intersection of sort of protocols, like how do you actually, teach the next generation about the seed phrase and about the wallets and about custody and about spends and about how to protect it, plus the structures, etc. And that there's a huge need for this. And moving forward, the need is only going to grow. We've got Jared Pierce up here. He does estate planning for Bitcoiners. He's one of these guys who is intersecting in this space. He's one of the few, actually. So, Jared, do you have any thoughts? Do you want to take maybe 2, 3, 5 minutes and explain kind of some basics?
Hey, Alex, appreciate you having me up. Yeah, I mean, this is certainly an interesting and novel area. There's not a lot of folks that are exploring the importance of inheritance planning for Bitcoiners. And I find it kind of important to begin anytime I discuss this with folks to separate exactly kind of the point you just hit on, Alex. And there is a distinction between holding your keys securely so that the next generation and your heirs can get it. That's a critical component to your inheritance planning strategy. We call that internally in our office key management strategy. Your key management strategy, whether you are doing what Shane recommended, a multi-sig, or whether you're using Casa or Unchained, there are some really effective tools out there, and there's some experts that can help you with that. And that's not really my field of expertise. How you're holding your Bitcoin is not something I can help with, and no lawyer should render an opinion to a client about the best ways to do that. There are better Bitcoiners than me can help you figure that out. But structuring your inheritance plan so that you can leverage like the Cantillon effect, but I call it the legal Cantillon effect. The closer you draw yourself to the law, the less you're going to experience the relative effects of the law, and it will affect you less. And so designing and creating an inheritance plan to ensure that you get the absolute best protection for your heirs upon your death. One of the things that people don't realize, and this is to kind of BJ's point earlier, the process that a Bitcoiner or their family will go through when someone dies is called probate administration. Probate administration in every state in the United States is public. So if you die with Bitcoin and you don't have a correctly designed inheritance plan, the Bitcoin that you are passing to the next generation will become public. They will know it. You will have to disclose how much it is. Not you, you'll be dead. Your heir, your administrator will have to fill the probate administration paperwork out, disclose to the court publicly as a public record how much Bitcoin you had, where it was kept, who your heirs are, and where they live. If that doesn't terrify you, you don't get it. And this is so easy to avoid. Probate administration is completely avoidable. But no one is, too few people are talking about it, and too few people are worrying about it. Folks like Swan Bitcoin are doing a fantastic job to ensure that as you age, you're retiring in style and with ease, and Bitcoin is going to help you get there. And you need to talk to Swan Bitcoin to ensure that you can do that, or whoever else you may find interested in talking to. But I think Swan's a great company to do that. But most importantly, besides planning for the future, you got to plan to die well. And if you don't die well, you're going to make a hot damn mess for your family.
Wow, that was really good. That was really good. Like, when I first started in Bitcoin, I was in a place in my life where I was like, man, screw these guys. I don't care. Skip a generation. Fuck them. But it's all really important because of everything you just said. Yeah,
Alex,
I think it's good.
I think what you just said is a cool sentiment, right? If your inheritance plan is a generation skipping plan, that's your prerogative. It's your value. It's your Bitcoin. You can choose to do with it as you please. But here's the thing: planning is the only option. Not planning is not an option. So if your plan is to skip a generation, do it. That's
That's not what I meant.
Oh, I'm sorry.
That's not what I meant.
Oh, go ahead then.
Yeah, basically what I was saying is like something that you said a little while ago is, if getting tied up with the government and them trying to pry into your estate doesn't terrify you. And I was thinking, screw them, I'll just die and let it pass on. And then obviously the problem is then, then your kids have to deal with that stuff as you so well pointed out. BJ, go ahead.
Yeah, just to tack on to that a little bit. My mother was in the legal profession, so I've kind of grown up hearing about family law. And Jared, you're 100% correct. I think anybody in this room, if you don't have a will, you need one. It doesn't have to be. It doesn't have to be intricate. Just a basic will, something. Put some sort of acknowledgement of Bitcoin. You have to put the amount or nothing, but put everything in there, because Jared is 1,000% right that if you die and you don't have that, the government is going to take everything or as much as possible. And it is not just in the United States, it's in Canada as well. And so many families that, she's told me about growing up. That's why I had a will from a young age. Their families had been destroyed. Families start fighting with each other. And it just becomes such a hot
I've
mess
seen
that
that.
people don't understand. Yeah.
Yeah, I've seen that.
Yeah, you guys would be, maybe you wouldn't be shocked, but I think a lot of folks often are about the number of lawsuits that arise after a loved one passes. People sue and fight each other. Siblings sue siblings, children sue parents, uncles sue, other relatives, just on and on and on. In our office, we don't call lawsuits bad business. We call that good profit margins. When people don't have estate plans, that's the only people that win are the lawyers. And I'm not trying to be a smart ass by saying that. My point is that there's a really easy way to avoid this entire problem, and it's by having a low enough time preference that you take the time preference that you have that got you into Bitcoin, and you apply that to the legal Cantillon effect. You can absolutely avoid probate for your family, or for you if your spouse dies. There are so many things that you need to be aware of, and it just involves a little bit of due diligence. It doesn't cost a ton of money. The crappiest inheritance plan that you can make is 1,000 times better than having no estate plan or no inheritance plan. It doesn't have to be a $10,000 trust-based plan. It could be something very simple. A lot of times we encourage folks at our office that are very price conscious to read certain articles online and go and take a crack at drafting it themselves holographically, writing it by hand. A lot of states allow you to do that, and send it to me and I'll review it and give you an opinion if it does the job good enough. There are people that are desirous of helping. You don't have to spend thousands and thousands of dollars to protect your family. But the cost of not doing it is tremendous. And here's the bottom line. In the United States, and I can't tell you about Canada or any other country because I am licensed in the US and North Carolina, and I've done work in all 50 states. But practically speaking, the cost of going through probate and having to appoint an administrator is up to 5% of the estate. If you want to, off the top of your estate, lose 5% of your assets, die without an inheritance plan. Just go ahead and give that, and that's not legal fees. That's just for the administrator to administer the estate. Legal fees can be incredibly large. But just understand that dying without an inheritance plan means that you're putting folks in a position to likely have to fight and pay exorbitant fees and expose themselves publicly to all of their assets.
Jared, absolutely.
Okay, this has
love your
been
insight. I just want to ask a question real quick, Jared. Love your insights. Absolutely, you know that. Because earlier you said, don't have your Bitcoin in an inheritance plan because it'll become public knowledge, and then people will know how much your loved ones will inherit of Bitcoin. But you're also saying you have to have it. So I'm not trying to be annoying or anything, but I'm trying to figure out if you think that the amount of Bitcoin should be in that inheritance plan, or if that's something you're supposed to keep under wraps. If you understand my question.
Yeah, let me unpack that for you. So if you die without a inheritance plan, you will have to go through the probate process, and your heirs will be required to disclose your assets, including your Bitcoin. That they will be required by state law to disclose how much Bitcoin you have and the fair market value of that Bitcoin at your death. The point that I was making was that if you die with an inheritance plan, there are ways in which you can completely avoid the probate process where disclosure to the government is not required. In fact, probate is not even required. So a good example of that, and if I could just bring it down to brass tacks real fast, is trust-based inheritance plans. Trust-based inheritance plans are a function of ensuring that your assets are titled or put in the name of a trust that you exclusively control, and that happens before you die. And so that when you die, your assets will just automatically transfer to your heirs or to your beneficiaries as you've designated. Now, you don't want to, in those documents, list out exactly how many Bitcoin you have. There are better ways to do that, and certainly I can discuss that with you privately. But practically speaking, disclosing to the government and public records how much Bitcoin you have is a pretty terrible idea.
All right, this has been a pretty popular topic. My DMs are exploding right now. And just so you know, if you're DMing me, I don't always read those during the show. In fact, most of the time I don't. So if you want to communicate with the team by text, the best way to do that is in our Telegram group. That's t.me/Cafe Bitcoin Club. Again, t.me/Cafe Bitcoin Club. Our team is regularly keeping an eye on that chat. If you have something good, pop it in there. If you have a question, pop it in there. Suggest you follow Jared and DM him if you're interested in this topic. We also have, by the way, Peter, I see your hand. We'll go to you in 1 second. We've got the Persian lawyer just came up here. Profile says global labor. Excuse me, can't even talk right now. Global labor and employment attorney by day, blockchain BLT enthusiast by night. Good morning and welcome up.
Thank you so much for having me, Alex. This is a really important conversation, and I just want to chime in my 2 cents. Everything Jared said so far is fully accurate in terms of, avoiding probate by having a will and making sure that your loved ones, fully get access to it as soon as possible. But the one thing I think that's not really hasn't been discussed as much is that, we all talk about self-custodying your assets and Bitcoin. And one of the biggest things that I made sure that my wife has access to is she's aware, how to access my Bitcoin if anything ever happens to me. And, one of the main ways, actually the only way for your family to access your Bitcoin in your wallet is making sure that they have access to your seed phrase. Otherwise, all this talk about the government getting access to, no one will get access to your Bitcoin if you don't have a plan in place to make sure that property goes from you to someone else. And possession is 9/10 of the law, and it absolutely is true. Possession is 9/10 of the law, but how are your loved ones, or even the government, supposed to get possession of your Bitcoin if they don't have the seed phrase? So I just wanted to make sure everybody's familiar with that concept, that this is a new technology we're talking about with wallets and self-sovereignty and self-banking. And say what you want about the fiat or the legacy system, but there were plans in place to make sure that property goes from one individual to another. I have issues myself with that system, but that's one thing that I just want to make sure everyone is aware of, is that, even if you have a will, just saying that you have a wallet and Bitcoin in that wallet and it goes from you to, let's say, your wife, if you die, you need to make sure that those individuals know how to access it. Otherwise, it'll just go poof. No one will have access to it. So that's the one thing I wanted to say. Everything Jared was saying regarding, avoiding probate by having a will, that's fantastic advice. It's not just Bitcoin specific advice. That's advice generally. But there are specific problems with, having your assets in the crypto world. And, I'll say Bitcoin in particular, because that's where most of my assets are. And I want my loved ones to have access to it. And the only way they'll be able to do that outside of a multi-sig system is the seed phrase. And so I just want people to be aware, if you are self-custodying, you need to be very careful, because if something happens to you, you need to make sure your loved ones have access. So I'll say that, and yeah, that's the main point I just wanted to bring up real quick.
Yeah, there's no
Awesome.
doubt.
I
There's no
appreciate you
doubt that
coming up.
there's no doubt that a key management strategy is an effective part of passing Bitcoin to anyone. And Persian lawyer, great points. The other thing I want to mention to you is that I do these rooms occasionally, and Alex is gracious enough to allow me up here every now and then, and it's great to share. But one of the things I get from folks after these rooms is I get messages about, well, I don't need an inheritance plan. I'm just going to give my Bitcoin to my spouse, and she has keys, and she's just going to take it. Or my kids are going to get the keys. They know what to do. One of the reasons why that's a terrible idea is that the benefit of dying with an asset is that your heirs get a step up in basis. They will pay less in taxes because their basis will be from a tax perspective, and I apologize for the car in the background. Their basis will be the fair market value of the assets or the Bitcoin when they receive it. So just simply trying to time the top of your life like a Bitcoin or a shitcoin trader. Very few people are good at timing the top of anything. But if you are going to try and transfer to heirs, best to do it through an inheritance plan, because the step up in basis will mean there is fewer taxes paid to the government.
That's pretty witty. Time the top of your life like a shitcoin trader. Peter, what are you thinking?
So, just anecdotally, my parents died within 4 months of each other in 2019. After 69 years of marriage, they had they had an estate. They had planning in place, and we are still and we have a completely cooperative family group. There's nobody suing each other. We're all trying to do what is best for everybody involved. We are just now, 3 years later, coming to the tail end of this process, and it is just Jared is so right. Having an appropriate plan in place, and they had a plan in place. It just didn't fit the size of their estate, and having a plan in place and updating it as your life goes on, and not ignoring it and involving your heirs in it is critical for being able to do exactly what Jared is saying, which is it's all about tax avoidance. That's what it's all about.
Well, first, sorry for your loss, man. I mean, like losing both your folks in such a short period of time, that's a bad hand, and I'm sorry that you're dealing with that or have dealt with that. But man, if I could just get more people to understand the bigger picture, like what you just said, and unfortunately, the only way people learn that lesson is by losing loved ones, and it's a real costly lesson to learn. And the lawyers, they love it, man. They absolutely love it, and the administrators, it's good work for them. It's stimulating someone's economy somewhere. It sucks that it has to be off the back of your family.
Yeah. All right. Listen, Jared, Persian, appreciate you guys coming up today. This is obviously, based upon the DMs I'm getting, a really important conversation, a topic that people are extremely interested in. I suggest you guys throw these guys a follow, join our Telegram group. Jared, you're welcome to join the Telegram group if you're not in there. Persian, you as well. If you guys have follow-up questions for these dudes, hit them. We're going to hit some announcements, and then we're going to move on. We have a featured guest up here right now, Fully Noted. Welcome and good morning, Fully Noted. We'll roll through some quick announcements, and then we're going to shift gears. You are listening to Cafe Bitcoin. Good morning and welcome. If you've never been here before, we talk about Bitcoin. We do this every day, Monday through Friday. We start at 7 a.m. Pacific, 10 a.m. Eastern, roll for about 2 hours live on Twitter Spaces. If you're listening to the pod, you want to catch this thing live, install the Twitter Spaces, or install the Twitter app, I should say, on your phone, and you can jump in here live if you want to. This is a great place for your morning news, a preferred hangout for some of the smartest minds in Bitcoin to just chill, talk about what's going on. Also a podcast. Spotify, Apple, everywhere you get your podcasts. You can throw myself or Swan Bitcoin a follow to be notified of when those drop. Mark your calendars. In November 10th and 11th, I believe, the Pacific Bitcoin Conference is coming up. Swan has rented an entire hangar at the Santa Monica Airport. For the week or two prior, all the Swans are going to descend upon Santa Monica. We're all going to be working there. We've got super high speed internet, And by the way, everybody's welcome to come hang out. If you are a remote worker and you want to hang out with the Swan team and just work and just chill and hang out, that's what we're going to be doing for the weeks prior to the conference. Y'all are welcome. It's going to be awesome. A good time. We're going to have hoops set up. We have so much shenanigans planned for this thing. You should see the Slack chat where the team is planning out. I'm not going to disclose what all the shenanigans are, but it is going to be so much fun. You guys are not going to want to miss this thing. Finally, my name is Alex Danzig. I'm your host. I work with Swan Bitcoin. If you want to know more about Swan, you should shoot me a DM. Happy to help you. If you have a business, you want to put Bitcoin on your balance sheet, we do that. One of the fastest onboarding processes in the entire industry. We take customers from all around the world. So we can help you if you're in other countries as well, besides the United States. And then if you're high net worth, ultra high net worth, you want to take a position in Bitcoin, don't really fully understand it, we have a deep bench of expertise. We provide a very personal one-on-one experience, and we're there to guide you every step of the way. All righty. Fully noted. Good morning and welcome.
Good morning. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, thanks for being here, man. Appreciate it. I'm not sure how we got hooked up with you. What's the story there?
Shane or somebody DM'd me and just said, "Hey, we want to hear more about Join Market in Fully Noted," and yeah, that's why I'm here.
Right on. Tell us a little bit about a little bit about the background and the origin story of what you're doing.
Well, basically, Fully Noted has been a long evolution. I started developing it in 2017. I only started coding really in 2015, 2016. And as soon as I started falling down the Bitcoin rabbit hole, I was also kind of falling down the coding rabbit hole. And it was just a perfect little activity for me to try and, generate my own private keys and derive my own addresses and my own BIP39 seed phrases. And it kind of was just a very slow step-by-step iteration to the point where I had a full-blown wallet. I think it was connecting to some API to get data from the blockchain. And so the Holy Grail is connecting to my own node. And then that was all kind of happening over the ClearNet and via, your local host. It had to be running locally on your computer. And then the Holy Grail was getting the remote connection with Tor, which provides all this, inherent security and privacy, and getting that to work on iOS, on your iPhone and on your Mac was a major hurdle for me as well. There was actually a bug in the Tor framework. Anyway, it was a long process. It's been a journey, and it's been coming along nicely. And now, fast forward to now, and it's become it's a full-on client for C Lightning, LND, Join Market, and Bitcoin Core.
All right, fantastic. Let's open the discussion wide open. Like if you're up here on the panel, you want to ask fully noted questions or you have comments. If you're in the audience, you want to come up, let's do that as well. You can also ask questions in the Telegram group. Once again, that is t.me/Cafe Bitcoin Club. t.me/Cafe Bitcoin Club.
So, Alex, I've got a question. I'm curious. I'd love to hear a little bit about your perspective on Join Market and how that's possibly different from, Whirlpool or those types of things. And then I'm also curious, and I'm sure a lot of our audience might be as well, with NFC becoming more of a thing and something like the Bolt card and others where you can, in essence, have something like a credit card and spend Bitcoin, from a Lightning wallet. I'm just curious how you intersect in that space.
Right. So Join Market, I am not a technical expert on Whirlpool or Samurai. I just come at it from the same way I come at using Bitcoin for my own self, which is, you want to minimize the third parties that you're using, which means basically just you don't want to be using other people's servers to kind of store your UTXO data. You don't want somebody else knowing which UTXOs are yours. And with with the coordinator model, which is what Samurai and Wasabi are using, I think it's a centralized coordinator. I don't really know what goes on there. I would prefer not to trust them. I would prefer Join Market, which is really more of a peer-to-peer protocol where I just have to send data to some stranger on the internet through some NIM in an IRC channel, and I have to prove cryptographically that I own a UTXO and I've only attempted to use that UTXO in a coin join X number of times. So I'm not like a Sybil attacker. It just seems to me the bottom line is that it's a lot more difficult to Sybil attack Join Market than it is Whirlpool or Wasabi. And the fundamental reason for that is because they've introduced these fidelity bonds. So you kind of have to post up some Bitcoin in order to be a maker, in order to earn some interest on your Bitcoin. You can be a maker and Join Market, right? And then somebody else can come along and say, well, I want to use your UTXOs to join with my UTXOs. But you two have never met in real life. It's not going through a centralized server. You're just running Bitcoin Core and Join Market, and that's it.
So I guess the reason to do this anyway, it just kind of struck me that maybe some of our audience doesn't understand what a coin join is or Join Market. This is just to add more privacy to your UTXOs that maybe have originated, I guess, from an exchange or something along those lines. Maybe you can speak from your perspective about that.
Yeah, exactly. So the typical use case would be you're like a Coinbase user and you're withdrawing all of your funds from Coinbase to your own cold storage wallet. But the problem with that is Coinbase obviously knows every single UTXO that you've sent to your private offline wallet. So even though you have it in cold storage and they're your keys, Coinbase knows which address you sent that to. And with all the funding that these blockchain analysis companies have, they can pretty easily tie, metadata to your on-chain data. I'm sure there's a lot that they can do that we don't even know about. So the whole point with Join Market and coin joins in general is to basically separate your UTXO history from what they know about. So you with Join Market, you can, and Samurai and Whirlpool, you can constantly kind of turn a button on and it's going to constantly mix your coins, your UTXOs with a bunch of other people. And it's just going to do that in the background. And anybody looking at the blockchain, in theory, should, if it's a proper coin join, they should not be able to guarantee, which input is linked to which output. It should be a total maze for them and completely de-link your Bitcoin history from Coinbase in this example.
Yeah, that's helpful. So maybe I'm also curious about NFC. I am just, as much as I love technology, especially with Bitcoin, now that I've gone down the rabbit hole, Bitcoin is kind of gets special treatment for me with regards to keeping it secure. So I have to imagine that a lot of people are maybe thinking, hey, if I can just take a card and basically touch it against something else and it spends my Bitcoin, maybe I need to be a little bit concerned about that. I'm curious if you could talk about, how to use that safely.
That's a great point. I think I have not. So right now I'm working with Coldcard. I haven't gotten into the tap signers or these NFC chips where you just have to, it's a credit card and you tap your phone to spend your cold storage. I haven't gotten to that part of it yet. What I'm doing right now with NFC is integrating Coldcard functionality. So it's just, instead of having to fumble around with your SD card, sending it from your Coldcard to your computer, you can just tap it. And the UX, for me, it's just a huge UX improvement. And it's a bit more, in my opinion, I would rather use NFC with my Coldcard. I just feel like it's more secure than messing around with an SD card, because there's a true air gap there. As far as, I think it's very important for Bitcoiners to have a couple different wallets. You have your spending wallet, and then you have your cold storage. You shouldn't ever be in a position where you can spend your cold storage just by tapping on one thing that's like in your house, where somebody can come up and break into your house, put a gun to your head, and say, "Okay, where's your NFC chip?"
Wow. Yeah.
I'm a huge proponent of multi-sig. So, I mean, in my opinion, I think if you're going down the journey, if you're going down the rabbit hole and you're getting serious about Bitcoin usage and you are worried about security, I think, having a 2 of 3 where your keys are, maybe one key is with a family member you trust, another key is in a bank safety deposit box, and another key is, in your house or whatever, in a safe, I think. And so for me, I would never transfer my multi-sig to a single sig and just use one tap signer. I would have multiple cards in multiple geographical locations. And it just makes it a bit easier. It's just a UX improvement.
Makes sense. I mean, if you back the clock up back in the days of cash and people actually carried cash in their wallets, you don't carry your whole net worth in your wallet.
Exactly. Yeah.
Welcome up, Knut Svanholm. Good morning. Haven't seen you in a little bit. How you doing?
Doing great. Great to be here. Hi, everyone. It's not morning here, it's afternoon.
Very hard to hear you, Knut. Can you speak into your microphone a little closer or something?
Okay, let's see. Is this better? Yeah, it's not morning here, it's afternoon. It's not better?
You sound like you're a really tiny person speaking into a little tiny tin can with a wire attached to it that's attached to our spaces this morning.
Let's see. Does this work better? Not at all?
No, but let's go ahead. Go ahead and ask your question or whatever it was you had to say. Go ahead.
I just wanted to make a point about coin joins, that the very act of coin joining or like using one of these services may trigger a flag of your UTXO in the Coinbase from the in the database from the exchange. So there's a risk to that too. So like everything in technology security, it's if you know exactly what you're doing, it's probably best to do all the measures. But if you don't know what you're doing, it's probably best not to do anything at all. Because the very act of coin joining may trigger something in their database to flag you.
That's an interesting point. Never thought about that. That's a very good point.
Yeah, I think that's a good point too. I do think that, I mean, Adam Back went to court and fought and said that code is free speech, right? A Bitcoin transaction is a Bitcoin transaction. Doesn't matter if the inputs and outputs are equal. Doesn't matter how many there are. It's still just a Bitcoin transaction. It's still data. It's still just a form of communication. It's free speech. I kind of reject the idea that they're all Bitcoin transactions. Sure, you may get flagged. You may get flagged for a lot of other reasons too. It shouldn't stop you from using these tools. I mean, everybody has their own risk profile. I think another good point there is Taproot should fix this. Bitcoin is only 13 years old, 12 years old, whatever it is. It's a slow progression of advancements in this space. And I think Taproot is just another major one of those, which is going to make coin joins and multi-sig much more private than it is today. And it would hopefully prevent Coinbase from being able to flag you effectively.
Yeah. The thing I would recommend, if I can say one more thing, is to keep the coins you bought from an exchange and the coins that you know are KYC free, keep them separated. That's like the offspring model. Gotta keep them separated. That's the most important thing.
Absolutely.
Yeah, very good stuff. I think really, when it comes down to whether people are going to take certain privacy measures and all of the things we've kind of been discussing, this has kind of been a recurring theme today, where, there's all of the things that Bitcoin does that's good for us. There's things that you can do to enhance your privacy. At the end of the day, the government really can't confiscate your Bitcoin. But, You know, there's the question of how inconvenient the government can make your life while you're alive if you don't think through certain things and do certain things in certain ways. So, you know, there's kind of this path. There's two different paths moving forward that are often described by Bitcoiners. One is this dystopian kind of surveillance state, panopticon future, where the leaders of the world are basically gigantic jerks and they're willing to do whatever they're going to do to you. And then there's this other future where it's the bright orange future where we take back our personal sovereignty, and we de-resource the psychopaths, is the way I look at it. So kind of two different things there, and I think there's probably some happy medium in between maybe that we arrive at. I don't really know. I'm not making any predictions, but these are the kind of things I think people think about when they're making these kind of choices. So let's continue here. Again, open it up. Anybody who has questions, you're welcome to ask. You're welcome to ask in the Telegram as well. And one person is asking, fully noted, can we start from the beginning? This is Brandon in the Telegram. What is fully noted?
Okay, so Fully Noted is, right now it's an iOS app, so it will run on your iPhone or your Mac. It connects directly to Bitcoin Core, and that is the only backend that it requires. So it's just like a plug and play wallet / node manager, where you can scan a QR code or you can input your credentials manually and it will connect. All you need to be doing is running Bitcoin Core on your laptop or a server or whatever, and you can connect to it remotely over Tor or a VPN if you wanted to.
On this phone app?
Yeah, it's a phone app, and it's just it's a powerful wallet. It really uses PSBTs for everything. It's fully capable with multi-sig. It's very powerful. There's a lot of kind of hidden tools back there, but yeah, it also does Lightning, so you can manage your on-chain and off-chain funds all through all your different wallets and all your different nodes through Fully Noted.
Can you have watch-only wallets on your device or your app? Yeah.
The way it works is it never, well, by default, when you create a normal wallet on Fully Noted, it will create a single sig watch only wallet on your node, but it'll use the device's secure cryptographic number generator to create a seed for you, and it also uses a Bitcoin library called libwally. I think Blockstream has developed that, and it'll sign the transactions for you locally too. So the point is your node is always cold. It never has any private keys, with some certain exceptions. You can make it hold private keys if you want to, but by default it doesn't. And you can also make it so the device doesn't sign at all. You can always delete. You can go in there and delete any signer whenever you want. You can add a signer whenever you want. So you can make it hot or cold very easily and quickly. And it doesn't actually interfere with your node at all. It's all happening locally on the device.
D, good morning.
Hey, good morning. Sorry, guys. I was a little bit busy, but speaking of hot, I know you guys got some new NFC features coming with stuff. I was just wondering if you could elaborate on that. I might have missed it.
Yeah, I'm very excited about Coldcard adding NFC. I've been really busy in my personal life lately, so I haven't been, working 8 hours a day on it. But I have added. It's pretty easy for me to add it. I just need to add another option for importing wallets. It already works with every importing feature from Coldcard. So if they add NFC support for every option that they have, I'm not even gonna need to update Fully Noted. It's already there, it's already working. Right now, all I need to do is release it on the App Store. It's on test flight because it's in beta. There was a few little issues, but those look to be resolved now. And so there's a couple main features. The first feature is wallet creation. So when you go to create a wallet in Fully Noted, you will, once it's released on the App Store, you'll see a new NFC button. So you can just tap NFC instead of scanning a QR code or pasting text or whatever. And so you just tap the NFC button, select the option in Coldcard. I think right now it works best with the XPub. So you just go into your cold card, export XPub, tap it, and there you go. Your wallet's created on your node and in the app.
So if you were, sorry, but scenario wise, if you were let's say you had two cold cards and a multi-sig setup, you're saying basically instead of doing the PPST file or whatever, you could just tap with your with the phone and your app and sign those two different signatures, if you will.
That's right. The phone will create a watch only wallet in the app, obviously, and your cold card is going to do all the sign-in. So you can then just create you just create a transaction, which on Fully Node would be a PSBT. You would then export that PSBT to the cold card via NFC. The cold card is going to go ahead and sign the transaction and export it back to the phone, so you can then import a PSBT via NFC. So it's import, export, and wallet creation.
Yeah, it's super exciting. Oh, sorry, go Shane.
No, I was just going to say, again, then from security, I guess your phone, since it can do the NFC, becomes another thing, if I'm thinking it through, that you need to secure in one way or another. The app, password protected or something, or 2FA, I don't know.
Yeah, it will require, it annoys you to create a password if you are doing wallet related things. So yeah, absolutely. I do not recommend that people use biometrics. I recommend that you use a unique password for Fully Noded. Fully Noded uses strong encryption. It does everything within its power to protect your data on the device. But yeah, at the end of the day, you don't want somebody to just be able to pick up your phone and spend anything, regardless of whatever.
Why do you suggest to not use biometrics?
Because, well, it's like something just happened in North Korea where a guy went on a Tinder date and the girl drugged him and then put his fingerprint on his phone and stole 80 grand worth of crypto or whatever it was. So it's just, I can come up to you with your iPhone and scan your face while you're asleep. And then you don't want people to that easily gain access. If you have your cold storage, if it's just spending money, yeah, I mean, who cares? But if you have your cold card multi-sig on there, you should definitely be putting a strong password.
Yeah, I think it's also
I
important.
mean, it's great. It's great to talk through these scenarios because not everybody thinks through all this stuff. I mean, when you first said that, I was thinking, yeah, I saw that spy movie where they chopped that dude's thumb off and he used his thumbprint. But you had something completely different in mind, so it's good.
Yeah,
I was just gonna say it's also important that if you're using NFC, it's not like it's gonna be now a hot wallet. It's just another way to export your XPub, right? So
exactly.
It just makes it more convenient for maybe your friends or family. It's just bringing it to the masses, right? Because
exactly.
SD cards, putting it in the computer, signing and stuff like it's hard for them. So bridging that gap, I think, is definitely the key, and NFC can help. So we appreciate what you're doing because. We've been talking with Blue Wallet as well, but you're in the lead, I guess, for integrating NFC. And like you're saying, it doesn't take that much, but yeah, we appreciate what you're doing.
Thank you. Yeah, it doesn't. I think the security question Shane had brought up earlier was with the cards that actually do the signing, right? So you have like a credit card that has your private key on it that's NFC enabled. But yeah,
right.
So I'm curious how you, Fully Noded, I'm curious how you, I've got to imagine that it's because, again, a lot of Bitcoiners are maybe just skeptical, don't want to trust, want to verify, if you will, instead. How has adoption been, and, what struggles, if maybe, have you gone through with regards to getting people to use the wallet? I mean, I'm definitely going to look into it. I'll be honest, I don't have it yet, but I will definitely get into it. But, as there's a ton of wallets now that are all pretty good. So what would you say differentiates yours?
What differentiates Fully Noded from the other wallets, I think, is the bottom line is it only requires Bitcoin Core. So you can really use it in a direct self-sovereign way. You really don't have to rely on anybody else's block explorer or server. You can do it all yourself. So with Umbrel and MyNode and Nodl and Start9, all of these companies that are coming out with these plug and play nodes now, they all support fully noded. So you can go in there and just scan a QR code and connect to your Bitcoin Core and see Lightning and LND very easily. It's an advanced wallet. There is a lot going on. If you're not familiar with what a PSBT is, it might be a little daunting. It's also, there's a lot of it's one of those, fully noded is an app where the more you use it, the more you'll like it. You might be put off immediately, but because you don't really know how it works. But the more you use it, the more you play with it, the more you'll like it. And that's the feedback that I get the most.
All right. I'm seeing a lot of text traffic for questions regarding previous shows that we've done. I'm just going to really quick say, guys, go check out the pod. We've got all of them, over 100 episodes of almost over 100 episodes. We've talked about almost everything you can imagine in regards to Bitcoin. So go back through those episodes. It's a treasure trove of information and knowledge on Bitcoin. We are pretty much at the end of the show. I want to welcome up Miss Space Cat if you have a question or something to contribute, and then we will move towards closing comments. Miss Space Cat, you have to. There you go.
I just wanted to ask, do you have a plan in the future to bring out cold wallets, or are you only focused on hot wallets?
Fully noded works as a cold wallet, but you have to tell it that you want to create a cold wallet. So when you...
Okay.
Right, so you have to feed it, you have to give it an XPub or something to work with. It will not be, it can't create a cold wallet. What you can do is you can create a hot wallet and then delete the seed words off the phone. That is the simplest way to do it. If you have another, otherwise it does work perfectly fine. You can import an XPub and all kinds of things to create watch-only wallets.
Okay, so it only works if I have a hot wallet now to connect it to fully noded.
Sure. I mean, in order to have a wallet at all, you need a seed phrase somewhere, right? So it's just a...
Okay, good. Thanks.
No problem.
So do you have to have your own node, or is that the obvious direction you'd like people to go? In other words, someone that doesn't have their own node yet, can they still use a common block explorer?
Currently, you have to add Bitcoin Core you have to have Bitcoin Core in order to use fully noded at all. So like you can't just add LND to it. You have to have Bitcoin Core and then you add your Lightning node. I have a lot of plans, a lot of things I'm working on. A simple version of fully noded where you do not by default have to add your own node would be really, I think, is much needed in this space, and just allowing people the option to, when they're ready, to upgrade to the next level of sovereignty and running your own node when they're ready would be great. And that's, I think that's the route I want to go for another wallet, which is just easier to use.
Right on. So really cool. Glad you joined us today. This has been a pretty cool conversation. Would love to learn more as you continue to progress. So stay in touch with us. We'd probably love to have you back at some point in the future and get more details. Do you have any closing thoughts, fully noded? Any sites that you want to plug? How do people get in touch with you?
Just on Twitter at fully noded, also in Telegram at fully noded. Just keep an eye out for the next update. It should be live on the App Store in a couple days with full cold card NFC functionality.
Sweet. Over to you, Chris. Bitcoin Mag, have any announcements or things you want to talk about?
Yeah, no, just promoting our Bitcoin Magazine live. We're going from 1 p.m. Eastern to 4 p.m. Eastern. We're going to have Adam O from Upstream Data. What they do over there is they use flared gas in order to mine Bitcoin. They've also created the black box for people that are running their own nodes that helps reduce the noise and take the heat away. Really awesome guest there. We've got news and notes with our host P and Q, and then we're gonna be going live on Spaces, simulcasting to YouTube, Rumble, and doing a Twitter Spaces from 3 p.m. Eastern to 4 p.m. Eastern with Sam Rule and CK Snarks. just talking about macro and on-chain analysis from 3 p.m. to 4, like I said. So that's it for me.
Nice. All right. That's a wrap. You have been listening to Cafe Bitcoin, the place for your morning news, a preferred hangout for some of the smartest minds in Bitcoin. Just chill, talk about what's going on. It's also a podcast. It's up on Spotify, Apple, everywhere you get your podcasts. You can throw myself a follow or Swan Bitcoin to be notified of when those drop. Thanks to Swan Bitcoin, Bitcoin Magazine, sponsors of the show, my crew, and Shane, Sats for Life, producer Jacob. Thanks to the speakers, fully noted. Thanks for hanging out today, and all the speakers who stop by here on the regular. Really admire you guys, because spending your time to teach people about this bright orange future is what we call getting on the mission. That's what it's all about, guys. I'm your host, Alex Stanzik. I work with Swan Bitcoin. If you want to know more about Swan, shoot me a DM. Happy to help you finally get on the mission, folks. I love all of you guys. Everybody go out there today and have a great day. Crush it.
Alex, have a great day as well. And, you know, we love hanging out with you here, and happy to be up all the time, man. Cheers.
Yeah, man. All of the developers and the people who support Bitcoin, CoinKite, obviously, you guys are a huge player in the space. Love what you guys do. Just the whole, you know, some people are like, Bitcoin isn't a community. It's not an ecosystem. I don't know, man. I don't agree with that. I feel like Bitcoin is a community. These guys are my people.
This is the
I
Bitcoin
really mean
Town
that.
Square, man. Bitcoin Town Square.
When
Thanks,
600 people will join a group, man, I mean, that's community.
I would say. For sure. And in general out there, for all you folks, don't shitcoin. It's bad for you.
What he said.
All right, I'm gonna share a little anecdotal thing. One of my crew on my team in Swan, he got DM'd by one of his onboarding clients. We're not going to dox this person, but he's like, "Hey, you know, I'm moving towards all Bitcoin, and the guy owns a lot of shit coins. He has lost. I'm not going to say the exact number because otherwise." Doxing this person, but he has lost almost $130,000 US in his shitcoin portfolio. Damn.
Wow.
Big yikes.
Oh my god.
The worst part
I'm
about that
just
stuff
saying.
is not the loss of money. Like that's obviously terrible, right? But for me, it's the opportunity cost too, because you could have just had your money in Bitcoin and maybe not go through $100,000 loss in shitcoin.
Here's
Meanwhile,
the other.
Bitcoin's now more expensive.
Yeah, and here's the other hard decision, in my opinion. It's like, okay, if you wait to try to recover, then Bitcoin's going to be going up right along with it if they do go back up. So it's like you didn't
Yeah, but
get
the
anywhere.
problem is the shitcoins never achieve their all-time highs in Bitcoin terms. That's the key, right? There's very few exceptions to that rule. And we have a really good report that one of our team members, Sam Callahan, produced that does a deep dive on all the data for the shitcoins that are up on Coinbase. If you guys are interested in that, by the way, shoot a little note in Telegram. We have a link. We'd be happy to provide that to you. It's an invaluable piece of information. People need to read this report and understand that these shitcoins are just screwing people left and right, like just carnage and scorched earth in portfolios. And if you think you're safe in Ethereum, guys, fun fact, according to BlockChair, 1,228,131 Ethereum transactions failed in May. I couldn't believe the number. I posted that in our team chat. I'm like, what the hell? Is this real? And Tomer was like, I'm paraphrasing, Vitalik actually designed it that way, intentionally. Tomer goes, transactions that run out of gas before concluding lead to fees paid with no change in state on the chain. meaning the transaction didn't complete. People just lost money. And that's intentional, by the way. Are you freaking serious right now? I mean, that's just so much insanity. And like people like love Ethereum. Like they love Vitalik. They're like think he's really smart and love this guy. It's like, what is wrong with you folks? It's like people who are like, oh, yeah, I really trust the government. These are good. I mean, these are good people. They're going to take care of us all. I don't know how people can actually think like. I'm sorry. Okay. I'm not sorry. I just don't understand it. I don't understand it. By the way, Swan has a crap facility. That's the Crypto Recycling Amnesty Program. I am not making this up. This is a real thing. Our engineers created this thing where if you have Ethereum, you want to convert it into Bitcoin. It's a one-way process. No, we're not trading in Ethereum. No, we're not going to make a market in Ethereum. No, you can't resell it, all that other kind of stuff. It's a one-way trip, Ethereum to Bitcoin. It's a real thing. You can do it through Swan.
Is it, Alex, is it only Ethereum or are some of the other coins in there too?
I believe it's currently only Ethereum.
Okay.
I mean, I think our engineering team, like there was one client that came in who had a huge stockpile of Ethereum. They're like, hey, I just want to convert this to Bitcoin. So we built this thing, right, with the idea that it might be used a lot. And it was kind of like a joke, actually, also. Like the engineering team was like, this is going to be really funny. We'll call it crap. And so, yeah, you can still do it. I think probably the most efficient way is just spit out on an exchange if you're sitting on an exchange and then send us the US dollars, but you can still do it.
That's what one lady that I've been talking to did. She just sold all of her stuff on Coinbase and supposed to have opened up a Swan account. I don't know if she has, but yeah, sell it all, buy Bitcoin.
If you can get out. If you can get out. I mean, the new thing that they're talking about is soul-bound coins, which means you never get out. So, like Hotel California, your money goes in and never comes out.
You can enter, but you can never leave.
You can't transact it either unless you can afford the gas fees, by the way. Just, making sure we're all clear on that. The funny thing is that, okay, look, I'm not claiming I'm even as smart as Vitalik. He seems like a goddamn genius to me. However, he's created this fucking abomination that is now the mother of all shitcoins, basically. And it doesn't even do what he thought it was going to do. He was literally on a thread the other day on Twitter, like expounding on all these reasons why it doesn't do what he thought it was going to do, and there may not be solutions to it. And of course, nobody in shitcoin world wants to hear that, because if Ethereum actually blows up, all their shitcoins blow up too. I don't know. Am I wrong? Am I off base? Somebody please correct me if I'm looking at this the wrong way.
Hey, I've been down that path, so we all get to Bitcoin hopefully as fast as we can, but a lot of us Bitcoin only folks started out with all that other junk. A lot of information, a lot of influencers, right? A lot of stuff out there to get people confused. That's why education, like you said earlier in the show, is important.
Yeah, it's like the influencers. It's kind of like there's this shitcoiner attraction called Mount Stupid, right? It's like a shitcoin theme park. And in the theme park, there's this gigantic fucking climbing thing called Mount Stupid. And there's influencers that are actually tour guides for Mount Stupid. They're like, hey, let's all get all these people together, and we're going to climb this Mount Stupid thing together. Peter, were you going to say something?
Yeah, almost everybody starts off. We all have the same iteration. We almost all have the same path towards Bitcoin, and really you said it right at the beginning of the show, I believe. The key is education, and once you get educated and you start to understand, everybody moves away from the shit coins and just into Bitcoin. And it's unfortunate, the price that individuals have to pay, but I think almost everybody pays a price in some way, shape, or form, and hopefully, even though that was a large number for that individual, hopefully that was not the vast majority of that person's accumulated wealth.
Yeah, I feel bad for people, like for real. I mean, I've had a lot of these conversations at Swan with people come to us and they're like, okay, we're ready to buy some Bitcoin. And they have these horror stories. It's pretty sad. This has been a great show today, though. I feel like we've hit so many different topics. Man, that inheritance planning thing is big. A lot of people are interested in that. All right, I'm going to bounce. Love you guys. Have a great day.